Okay, so a very good evening, guys. Can you let me know if y'all can hear me and see a screen? Yes. Can hear, can see? Right, perfect. So today, guys, we're going to finish off unit number 1 in our revision class. So with this, the whole free month of classes that we were supposed to do comes to an end, right? So I'll just explain the process also in terms of registering for July. I would have sent the details. Some of you all have already registered. Little by little, we are adding you all to the paid class group. So in terms of the whole program itself, Lamai, how the revision class would work is similar to how it went for unit number 1. So for every paper, we will do every unit will be broken into smaller parts. It's called a focus area. I will recap that area. There will be certain papers that you have to get done. The main revision paper has to be submitted by Tuesday. We'll mark those papers and give, right? All of that will happen. So with today, unit number 1 is done. The new set of tutes will be couriered. So that is for the theory class, my theory class also, if you all are planning on registering, you can register for July because I'm starting unit number 5 next week. So unit number 5 is again not connected to 1, 2, 3, and 4. So even if you don't know 1, 2, 3, and 4, you will perfectly understand unit 5. That is where macroeconomics starts. So you can start from unit 5 to cover up 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want, you can purchase the recordings and the tutes and cover that up as well. That option is also available. So you can start with unit number 5 in the theory class, and you can start off with unit number 2 in the revision class. That is next week. So next week is where all the work for July starts off, 5 in theory and unit number 2 in revision. So the new set of tutes, files, and all of that will be couriered probably by around, I'm getting it from the printing, most likely around tomorrow, right? So probably depending on the time to pack and all of it, probably by around Thursday, the tutes will be couriered. So if the tutes get couriered by around Thursday, there might be a POIA issue, but hopefully within, let's say, around 4 or 5 days, you all will get the printed set of tutes to your hand. That is second unit for revision and the 5th unit for theory. So for those who are registering, Lamai, I would encourage you to try and register as early as possible so that the institute can sort the tutes out and they can courier the tutes as early as they can. Right. So with that being said, today is the last day for unit number 1. In terms of the paper, I think some of you, I just went through some rough answers. I think it was maybe a little difficult than maybe revision paper number 1 and 2. 3 was also a little hard. I guess, did you all compare your, did you check your marks for revision paper number 3? The papers were uploaded and sent today. It was supposed to be sent yesterday, but then there was a small delay. So the papers were sent today, right? So go through the comments, see again where you need to improve if there are comments. Now, if your answers are good, Lama, there might not be comments. So if there are places that you can improve on, compare your answer with the one on the marking scheme and see, right? So that's what I want you all to do. And did you also finish the other work? The take-home paper, the past paper, focus area? Yes. Nice. So what you also can do is, Lamai, I think a good mark for revision paper number 3 would have been, at least if you would have got around a 60, I feel that is an okay-ish good mark, given that the paper is not the easiest and also it's not very, very hard. But I feel at least if you've got around 60 for revision paper 3, that's a pretty good mark. But even if you got a little low, that's okay, because we have time, Lamai. We have one entire year to work on and get things done. So this week, the work that you have to do in the revision class is almost zero. If you have finished all the week, if you have finished all the work, then this week there is nothing to do because there is no paper to submit. Once we are done with discussing revision paper number 4, there is no new paper to submit because next week only I have to start unit number 2. So for unit number 2, Lama, I have changed the approach a bit. I have made a short note myself, right? I took the time, I took an entire day to summarize the entire unit into one A3 sheet. So one A3 sheet, that is 4 sides, right, into 4 papers. I've summarized it. You will get that with the unit 2 set of tutes. You will get that as well. So you can use that as Lamai. It's a short note, right? So make sure that is not the only thing you study. It's a short note. So it's a note for you to quickly go through and, summarize the thing. So if you want, you can add things to that. You can paste sticky notes on top of that, right? You can add things, that is completely fine, but that's a short note. So some people now, the problem that happens when you give you a short note is you're only starting a short note. So don't make sure that happens, Lamai. Make sure that you do. So you can write your own short note as well. That is what I will definitely recommend, but you can refer to mine also for additional purposes. So I want you all to make your one, because then only you will really get into and really learn the unit. But if you sometimes have not much of time, then you can even use my short note that I give. So that is for unit number 2. Okay, so you all will get that with the file. Once you all get, let me know. Right, then today, in terms of, sorry, there were a few questions. If you register today, yeah, if you register today or tomorrow, Lama, very soon you will get the thing. Don't worry. Right? So what I will also do is, Lama, some of y'all have made some really, really nice short notes. So I'll share some good short notes on the group as well. So for the ones who aren't able to make short notes, who don't know how to make a short note, you can have a look at that and, get inspired by the notes that other people will be doing. For unit number 2, there are 3 focus areas. We'll get that done, right? So we'll talk about unit number 2 next week. So this week, yes. So this week you don't have a lot of work to do, right? In terms of revision, what I want you to do is, Lamai, if you all have any unit number 1 work that is pending. Now, unit number 1, there was around 11 papers in Lamai, 4 revision papers, 4 past papers, and then 3 take-home papers, 4, 4, and 3. There were 11 papers. So if you all have anything that is pending, anything that you're not very sure of, what I want you to do is wrap that off this week, so that next week on Tuesday, we can freshly start unit 2. And the best thing is, you all know unit 2 is not connected to unit 1. So you study unit number 1, put that aside. Next week, we'll freshly start off unit number 2. So next week, we will go through the area. Next week, we have very important thing that will be a paid class, Lamai. So you'll have to pay and register. The income effect, substitution effect for a normal, inferior, and given good. Now that part I would have not even gone through in my theory class also. So I will take a proper 1 hour to explain that whole story very much in detail in the revision class next week. So next week, the entire 2.5 hours to 3 hours, we'll get the whole thing done. So this week, completely finish off unit number 1. For revision paper 3, got more than I said. Good, that's great. If you got more than what you expected. If it's a lot more, then just check if there is any of an additional error, but a little bit more than that is completely fine. Do you cross-check all the papers? Not every single thing, maybe certain things here and there I have a look. Unit number 5, theory class, we'll start next week. Okay, right. So let's get started for today's work. So today we have 2 things to get done. The first thing that we have is, Lamai, we need to discuss the last revision paper number 4. That is on the PPC thing. That's the paper that you all submitted today by around 6 p.m. The second thing that I will be doing is, Lamai, we have a quiz. So we have a quiz, a bit of a bigger quiz this time. So today, once we are done with this, we have some time. So we have a quiz of 30 MCQs. That is, your A-level paper itself is 50 MCQs. So this is around 3/5 of your A-level paper, 30 MCQs of unit number 1. So there is a big quiz that is there. Once this paper is done, we'll get into it. So it's from the entire unit number 1. So what I did is I picked the hard questions, especially in the past papers and all of it. The difficult kind of questions is what I took. I made a few changes here and there, and is what I actually put into the quiz. So some of those hard questions which I was thinking of discussing will be covered through the quiz itself. Okay, so we'll get this done first, then we'll move into the quiz. So I hope that the best person wins. There will be a bit of a cash prize involved also for those who do really well. What the prize is, I will inform you when we start the quiz. Okay, so we'll get started, Lama, with revision paper number 4. Is overall, I know for those who have done all the work, I don't know how many of y'all have, but I hope that you have. For those who have done all the work, Lama, now you've completed almost most of the 11 papers. Now we had 11 papers for unit 1. You might have not come across every single thing, but let's say you came across, you've done most of it. Do you see that you have improved in terms of unit number 1? Yes, your answer writing would have got better. You feel a bit more confident. You see the same thing is what is being, twisted around and being asked. Right? There is not a lot of things. It's the same thing. They put duck here and there. They make changes, and that's what they ask. No, so that is what I want to build in you itself, Lamai, to build that confidence with you, right? Because some people realize that, no matter how much of theory sometimes you learn, you can't write answers. So answer writing, Lama, you don't have to have perfect writing. Right? This is where we are starting. If you have perfect writing when we start itself, amazing. Even if you start at a very weak level, Lamai, the more and more and more and more and more papers we do, the better you will get. So this whole revision program, like I've told you all before, nice, pen writes nice. So now just to let you all know, Lamai, in terms of this, right? Yeah, that's perfectly fine, Lamai. You might see a very bit of improvement. That's all right. Because these are different papers, no, Lamai. It's not the same paper, no. It's not from the same area. So everything is different paper. So even if you might sometimes not see an improvement from one paper to another, because that's different things that is being tested. So don't worry too much about that thing itself. So overall, I've told you all the plan. Even if you are a part of my class or not a part of my class, I would like all of you all to follow that overall plan. The overall plan is, Lamai, next year by around February, that is by around 6 months before your exam, try to finish studying the entire syllabus. That is something that I will recommend if you are targeting for a good grade level, not just a A. If you're planning for like an island rank, let's say targeting for 90, 95 at least for econ, I would recommend Lamai finishing off the syllabus by around 6 months before. So on my end, I will do that for those who come to my class, but even for the ones who are not, I want you all to, kind of do that because that helps Lamai. So I am not sure if you can, if all the teachers for the other subjects will also finish it. So if you can do it, perfect. Because on my end, by next year, by February, I will finish the entire theory thing, all 12 units, the revision. Now we have finished unit number 1 today. No? All the 12 units, I will finish off by February. So then by February, you have learned all the theory. You have done around 100 papers for revision, and all of that is done. So then thereafter, Lamai, at that point, yeah, don't worry, you will not forget because we have classes after that. So after that, Lamai, what happens is we start something called a fast track program where we focus on not just the 75, we'll push to the 90-95 now. So you're done by February, Lamai, you're done with the entire syllabus, meaning now you can even do the entire level paper. So you can do full papers now, right? You can do all of that. So then there onwards, we'll work on it. Just try to have that type of strategy that actually helps going through the syllabus multiple times. And that's why I would have also realized the results of my students is usually much better than what, all other teachers might have. Even though I do a completely online class, even if you look at the recent batch, Lamai, from the top 10 in the island, there were 3. And if you look at the top 100 in the island, there were around 6 or 7 students. So top 100 in the island, Lama, is not an easy thing. But even with just for online class, they're getting it done. I had a chat with most of these people. What they said is that strategy that I use to cover the syllabus multiple times helps them a lot. Because it's not just, I don't drag the theory and revision class until A levels. I finish it early, then the students also know the entire syllabus early. They know what to get done, and that works, Lavai. So stick to the plan, get the work done on your end. Right. So there were some questions. Yes, if any of your papers are not there and all of it in the Google form, not Google form, no way, Google Drive. If your paper is not there, just drop a text to the admin. Now, usually the paper should be there. Sort the things from A to Z. The Google Drive, you sort it from A to Z. Then search for your name. If you have properly renamed your file, then in that letter, your paper has to be there. If you can't find it, just drop a text to the admin. They will check and they will also let you know. Okay, right. So 90 plus for econ and 75 the other 2 subjects. We'll not settle there. We'll try to get 90 for all the subjects. If you get, I would say a 90 plus for econ and 75 for the other 2 subjects, maybe close around 1.7-ish. That could be the thing. Okay. After unit 3, should we do the paper in the file? I'll let you know. That's the theory class. No, I'll drop a text in the theory class too for that. Okay. Okay. So question number 1. So question number 1 is an MCQ. Now, some questions are hard, Lama. I want you all to listen very carefully and try to understand it. Okay. So question number 1 says, The following diagram shows a production possibility curve defined over clothes and rice. So you have a PPC that's producing clothes and rice. If the economy changes its production from point A to point B, so right now, let's say they are producing a lot of clothes and a little rice, they have moved from this point to produce more rice. So now they are producing more rice. They're asking you, which of the following statements about opportunity cost for cloth and rice is correct? Now, I want you all to listen and understand there's a very important point here, Lamai. So if you look at this, now this PPC is Lamai, a increasing opportunity cost PPC. It's a PPC that represents increasing opportunity cost. But that doesn't mean just because you move from one point to another point, the opportunity cost of producing both goods will increase. Okay. What you need to understand is, Lamai, when you go from point A to point B, okay, I'll tell you something. I'll give you an easy way of showing this. Right. If you look at this, okay, don't worry about the concave thing. I'll put some numbers. Okay. Okay. Now you'll understand the story better then. Let's say, Lamai, if you use all your resources, you can produce, let's say, 200 clothes. Or you can produce, let's say, 100 rice. So I'll just put some numbers just to make it easy for us. Then let's say at point A, we are producing 180 clothes and let's say 40 rice. At point B, let's say we are producing 100 clothes and let's say we are producing 90 units of rice. Let's say I'm just giving some numbers. Okay. Can you all tell me? Yeah, I want you all to understand this story properly so that you can get the answer. At point A, a second. Yeah, at point A. So when you're producing at point A, Laman, how much of rice are you producing? How much of rice are you producing at point A? Now read the graph with me. You're producing 40 units of rice. Because you're producing 40 units of rice, how much of clothes can't you produce? What is the opportunity cost of producing 40 rice? Because you're producing 40 rice, you can produce 180 clothes. My question is, how much of rice can't you produce? You can't produce this amount, no? This 20 units of clothes can't be produced. So if I tell you, right, at point A, the opportunity cost of rice, right, opportunity cost of producing rice, opportunity cost of producing rice is 20 cloth. Do you all agree, Lam? Opportunity cost of producing rice is 20 cloth. Yes, no? Fine. At point A, the opportunity cost of producing rice is 20 cloth. So at point A, you can produce 40 rice. When you produce 40 rice, you can't produce 20 cloth. That is your opportunity cost, right? Now, can you tell me at point B, what is the opportunity cost of producing rice now? Opportunity cost of producing rice. At point B, how much of rice can you produce? At point B, Lama, you're producing 90 rice. When you're producing 90 rice, how much of cloth are you producing? You're producing 100 cloth. How much of cloth can't you produce, Lama? That is what you call opportunity cost. At point B, you can't produce 100. Remember, not 80. Yeah? You're producing, you can't produce 100. So opportunity cost of producing rice at point B is 100 cloth. So can you tell me, Lamai, when I move from point A to point B, okay, when I moved from point A to point B, what happened to the opportunity cost of producing rice? Did it increase or decrease? Earlier, the opportunity cost was 20 cloth. Now the opportunity cost is 100 cloth, the number increase, no? So opportunity cost of producing rice increases. Right. Now we'll look at Lamai cloth. Now, so far we looked at opportunity cost of producing rice. No? Now we look at the opportunity cost of producing cloth. So can you all tell me, okay, at point A and B, at point A, when you are producing, at point A, when you are producing 180 cloth, how much of rice are you producing? When you're producing 180 cloth, you can produce 40 rice. How much of rice can't you produce? That is the opportunity cost. What is the opportunity cost of producing 180 cloth? The opportunity cost of producing 180 cloth is this 60 units of rice that you can't produce. No? That entire 60 can't be produced. So at point A, what is the opportunity cost of producing cloth? Is 60 rice. Now tell me, Lamai, at point B, when you're producing 100 cloth, you can produce, Lamai, 90 rice. Now what is your opportunity cost? Opportunity cost of producing cloth now? Now when you produce 100 rice, you can produce, 100 clothes, you can produce 90 rice. How much of rice can't you produce? That 10 rice. That is your opportunity cost. So looking at that, Lamai, can you give me a conclusion? What happened to the opportunity cost of producing cloth? Earlier it was 60, now it has gone to 10. Meaning it has 60 has become 10. At point A, opportunity cost was 60 rice. Now the opportunity cost is only 10 rice. The opportunity cost has decreased. So that is how, Lamai, I get that answer for that. So when you go from point A to point B, opportunity cost of producing rice has increased. The opportunity cost of producing cloth has decreased. Answer number 1. How many of you all got that correct? Short correct with some logical explanation. I'll summarize the thing again, don't worry. But yes, logically, I figured that out. Good, nice. So let me just summarize this thing again, Lamai. I'm not going into very detail. You can watch the recording if you missed a lot of things. So what I want you to do is, remember last class, I taught you all, Lamai, how to read opportunity cost. When you're producing at this point, what is the opportunity cost? Remember, that is connected a bit to the last class too, right? So at point A, when you're producing 180 clothes, you can't produce how much? You can't produce 60 rice. At point B, when you're producing 100 clothes, you can't produce how much? 10 rice. So that's how you read the opportunity cost line. Same thing, do the other way. When you're producing 40 rice, how much of clothes can't you produce? 20 clothes. When you're producing 90 rice, how much of clothes can't you produce? You can't produce 100 clothes. That is what you call the opportunity cost. Then compare and see, has it increased or decreased? No, I don't want an explanation there. I just gave the lines. I think if there are lines below, that's just to make a small note. Because the question is 2 marks. No? So it's just the MCQ. So answer number 1. Okay. Then we go to question number 2. Question number 2 is saying, draw and explain how each of the following situations would affect the country's PPC. And they're giving you 8 marks. Remember, I told you last class also, you need to have a small explanation. Don't just draw a PPC. Whether they have asked you to explain or not even asked you to explain, you give a small 1-line explanation. Remember that. Remember, our whole point is, we're not trying to pass the exam. We're trying to write solid, nice answers so that the examiner will anyhow award you the full mark. So you need to impress the examiner. If they have not asked the example, give an example. No, you don't have to mark as PPC 1, 2. That's okay. But You need to get that done. Right. So then, yeah, you can write PPC, no problem. So the first one says, now here, one more thing. Lamai, when the question tells you what goods to take, if you have taken the wrong good, then also marks will be cut. Anyone here who did that? The question says, Lamai, take capital goods as the x-axis. So this has to be capital goods. And it says consumer goods as the y-axis. Guys, you all need to know what is x and y. Yeah? X is the horizontal, y is the vertical. If you have not done that, you would have some of the marks cut. Maybe not the entire thing cut, but at least half of it will be cut. So x is the vertical axis, horizontal axis, sorry. Y is the vertical. You need to have that. If they have not told you what the goods are, Lamai, you can use any type of goods, no problem. But here, since they have specifically mentioned what axis, what goods, you have to use it, Lamai. You can't change it around because I have specifically said that. Okay. So then question number 1, a reduction of inefficiencies of production following a change in management. So, Lamai, this thing, I will give you 2 answers here. Right? This doesn't have to be exactly this first one. In the first one, in part A, a reduction in inefficiency. A reduction in inefficiency, Lama, you can think of it in 2 ways. One way you can think of it is, right, I will give answers for both, don't worry. One way that you can think of this, right? Oh, I will feel that is the more correct way of thinking of it also, right? One way of thinking of it is, so right now you're inefficient. So right now, if you're inefficient, what I would think of is, right now you're operating at a point inside the PPC. You're inefficient. Your labor is not motivated. They are, discouraged. But now what has happened? The management of that country or that firm has changed. Now they have motivated their employees. So as a result, what can happen, Lamai? Now you might move towards the PPC. Your inefficiency has reduced. So this also, I would feel, is a more correct way of explaining than what I have given over here. Right? So consumer goods, capital goods. So then how can you explain? You can say a reduction of inefficiency means more of your resources will be utilized. As a result, you will move to a point towards. But you can also, for a little bit, you can argue. No, you don't have to mention PPC 1, 2. That's okay. Right? For a little bit, you can argue saying, right, now, maybe they were not inside the PPC, right? Maybe they were on the PPC, right? And now management has become more efficient. Therefore, you can argue saying shift. But what I would do is, Lamai, for a question like this, right, I would recommend this answer than the second one. This is what I would recommend. But this is also accepted. Right? Even if you have given it as a shift in the PPC, I will still accept. Yes. Explain this. So I'm saying when inefficiencies are used, PPC will show outwards from both axes. That's what I've said. Or you can say it will move towards the point, towards the PPC. So you get 1 mark for the diagram, 1 mark for a small explanation of that. If you have switched the axes, got that wrong, half a mark is cut. So half a mark cut for wrong axis. Why someone's balls itching? Sad. There's someone who comes in always a noise. Right. Enough to explain. Yeah. You don't have to draw too much, Lama, because they are saying when they say draw and explain, right? You don't have to go into very much in detail because you can't write paragraphs and paragraphs about this, Lama. You give the diagram. You give a small, let's say, 1 to 2 line explanation. That is more than enough, right? You can get that done that way. Rightward shift is also fine, Lemma. Even if you show as a reduction in efficiency, I'll give you marks for both here. Both of it is acceptable answers. Okay, right. So, okay, just to summarize this again, Lemma, what has happened? The inefficiency in production has reduced. So maybe the management of a company has changed. And as a result, what has happened? Now maybe a firm that was inefficient, the employees that were inefficient, they were demotivated. What has happened is now they have become much more efficient, Lemma. So as a result, how do you show that on a PPC? So here I'm telling you, more acceptable answer would be, because the question itself is saying inefficiency. So the more acceptable one, right, I would say, is what I have drawn instead of what I have typed there. I would say moving from a point inside towards the PPC. But even if you argue saying that it's a shift of the PPC, that is okay. A shift inward is wrong, Lamai. They're saying a reduction of inefficiency. It can't be a shift inward. You're reducing inefficiency. That means you're getting better. So you can get that. So if you are to ask me which one of this, if you are to select with one of this, I would go with answer number, the one that I have wrote on screen level. Okay. You can argue, it's more easier to argue that it was an inefficiency that was there because they have used the word inefficiency. Now inefficiency has come down means that means you are inside the PPC. Now you're moving towards the PPC. Yeah. It can be on the PPC. It can be towards the PPC. That is okay. You can say productivity increase also. You can argue that way as well. But I would say the second one that I have written is more correct. Then part 2. Part B is saying adoption of improved technology in both industries. Now that's an easy one. If the technology improves, Lamai, what will happen? The productivity will increase. So as a result, the PPC will shift out. So 1 mark for the PPC, 1 mark for a small explanation. You have to show arrow, Lamai, because otherwise your answer is not complete. You have to draw an arrow and show that it is shifting out, because otherwise you just draw 2 PPCs. How do you know which one is this? How do you find that there's a movement or a point? That is what I would have taught you last class. Think of the determinants. If a determinant is changing, then it's a shift. If the determinants are not changing, then it's a this. Yeah, 1 arrow in the middle is also okay. That's not a problem. There has to be some arrow going out. Okay, then C. What is C? C is saying an inflow of foreign investment. Again, a very easy one. What happens if there is more and more foreign investment for both industries? The PPC will again shift out. So more foreign investments means more capital, right? More productivity. And as a result, you can shift out. So on that. So again, 1 mark for the PPC, 1 mark for investment. So 1 mark for explanation. Then the last one is saying, Lamai, improvement in the labor productivity in the capital good industry. So only in your capital good industry, the labor productivity has improved. Maybe they have given them training, hurry, something. And now in capital goods, people are very productive. They can, produce much faster. So as a result, what happens, Lamai, PPC shifts out, but only to the capital good industry side of it. So you shift the PPC out for capital goods. So here, the PPC will shift outward only from the capital good axis, signifying an increase in productivity. Right. So that's your answer for part 2. If labor productivity increases, won't the production consumer goods increase too? If labor productivity overall increases, yes. But here they are specifically saying the improvement of labor productivity of the capital good industry only. So maybe your argument is correct if it's in the long term. In the long term, yes, now you're producing more capital goods means you can produce more consumer goods. But when you're drawing the PPC, you can't think of all of that. You draw the PPC immediately right now, what will happen? So right now, if there is increase in productivity of the capital good industry, you will shift only the capital good. You can argue saying the long term, because capital is more good, then you can get that. Okay, right. Okay, so that's again 1 and 1. Shape. Change the axis and on the PPC. That's the problem. So the things, if you change the axis, I will consider, but some marks will be cut. It comes. If there's increase in investment, usually the capital and all that will increase. So you can. It depends on your answer. So if you have not labeled the PPCs, not done different things, that could be, you don't have to label it as PPC1, PPC2. That is not needed. But at least the shift, the 2 axes has to be properly labeled on your end. Okay. Then we go to question number 3. And that's another question on a PPC. They're saying, briefly state the economic effects. You can't switch, Lama. If you switch the axes, I will cut marks because the question I am saying, use this, right? Sorry, in the third one. Yeah, third one you can, Lama, because I'm not saying what the axes are. So they are saying, briefly state the economic effects of the following developments using a production possibility boundary. Now, Lama, here, let me clarify this for you. Look at the answers. Answer number 1, question number 1 says, a drop in agriculture production. Now, when part A says my agriculture production, you have to use agricultural goods as one good lamai. You can't use X and Y as the two goods. So you need to have that bit of common sense. When they're talking about one type of a good, you have to use that type of a good for at least that axis. You can't use capital and consumer goods there. You can't use X and Y because they're saying agriculture. It doesn't have to be the same for all lamai. It could be different for different things. Now, for example, let's say a part B. Now, part B says a power crisis leading to a power cut every day. Now, something like that, it's not connected to a good, no. So that if you have agriculture industry, X and Y, consumer capital, that is okay. But remember, now those are things that you all have to learn. Now, it's not about arguing with me right now, sir. What if I put this? Will I get marks? Why are we here in this revision class? Is to perfect that answer. I know you all know this, but it's about writing that most complete, most correct type of an answer. So that's what I'm teaching you. The first one, when they say, Lamai, a drop in agriculture production as a result of a drought, how do you show that? See, one axis has to be agriculture, Lamai. Now, how do you show that on the PPs? Look at how I have shown that, Lamai. It's not a moving, it's not a simple movement inside, right? It's the drop of agricultural goods only. If you want, Lama, you can show. No, you can't say a shift. It's not a shift. It's just the amount of goods that you're producing has come down, Lama. So let's say earlier you were producing, let's say earlier you were producing 100 agricultural goods and let's say 50 industrial goods. Now what has happened is their question is saying because of a drought, the agriculture production has decreased. They haven't said no, agriculture land has fallen and all of it. So if they said something like agriculture land has decreased, then Lama, you can shift the PPC inside. Anna, your resource endowment is coming down. But here they haven't said anything like that, right? They're just saying there's a drop in the agriculture production. So earlier, let's say if you produced 100 agriculture goods, now you're producing, let's say, only 70 agriculture goods. Now that is what is happening, Lama. You're moving, your industrial goods can't change. Don't go and change your industrial goods because the drought can't affect my industrial goods or the other good. No. It has to only affect this. Yeah, you can take, no, it doesn't have to be industrial, right? You can take anything else for the other axis. One axis has to be agriculture. You can even put agriculture in the horizontal axis. That is okay. Because I haven't said that anywhere saying take agriculture as vertical. It could be in any axis, but have that there. Okay. Fine if I use agriculture good 1 and 2 for both sides. Both axes can't be the same good. I'm not very sure if what you're mentioning, but both axes can't be the same good. You can't have agriculture and agriculture there. Yeah, a small explanation is needed, Lamai. So they are saying to briefly state the economic effects of this. So you have to give a small explanation. So here, I'll give you, Lamai, 1.5 marks for a PPC, half a mark for a small explanation. Because if agriculture production drops means there could be more unemployment. So as a result, you can say PPC, it will be a movement of a point. Okay. Right. Then the second one, a power crisis leading to an electricity supply, cutting electricity supply every day. Now you need to understand, Lama, is this a small term thing or is this a big thing? Now, if there is, Lama, a small power cut, now sometimes when I do classes also, Lama, my current goes. But something like that can't shift your PPC. Maybe a small magnitude power cut, Lama, for let's say 1 hour, that will be a point moving in. Right? But here they are saying, Lama, every day there is a power cut. Right? Because of a power crisis, every day there is a power cut. Now that is a big problem now. So as a result, what happens? You shift the PPC inside itself. You don't have to have electricity as a good here because electricity is not a good. No. So electricity is the input that we are using. Okay. So it's an inward shift of your PPC. So this is A. This is B. For the power crisis PPC won't. It's an inward shift. That's what I'm just showing you. The PPC will shift inward. Okay. Give me a second. See, if it's long term, the PPC will shift. Yes, you can cut this answer here. This answer is something that has come to another one. Right? Don't worry about the explanation. So explanation can say, Lamai, what happens when you shift the, because power is an input. What is happening over here, Lamai? What? Yeah, you can have consumer capital, no problem for this. Now for part B, Lamai, it doesn't have to be agriculture industry. So you can say, here you can say consumer goods, here you can say capital goods. That is no problem because I haven't mentioned a good there. So you can say, Lamai, reduction of capital. So right. Capital reduces. That's why the PPC, now electricity is the input that you need. So you can get that. No, point movement, no. That's why I'm saying if it's a long-term thing, the PPC have to shift. If it's a short-term thing, you can move the point, no problem. Because I'm saying it's something that is happening every day. So you need to figure out that it's a more serious thing. What's the red line? Red line is a new PPC. Okay. Then the third one, destruction of infrastructure as a result of a war. Now that is an easy one. If there is a war, if your infrastructure, your roads, your buildings, those get destroyed, what can happen, Lamai? Your PPC itself can shift inward. So you can not say decrease in productivity. You can say a decrease in your capital stock. So there is a decrease in your capital stock, Lamai. So as a result, what happens? Your PPC shifts in. So that's an easy one. Again, 1.5 marks for the PPC, a small half a mark for a explanation. You have to name the axis, Lamai. So don't ask me whether you should name the axis. Yeah, see, only a point is wrong, Lamai. Because infrastructure reducing means your capital itself comes down. Different countries, then when we take us to different countries, you can't take us to different countries. No, it's one country. It's one country, two goods. Infrastructure is Lamai, the overall economic infrastructure. Infrastructure means your roads, your buildings, your ports. So that means your capital will reduce, Lamai. So you will shift the PPC in. No, for part B, it has to be a PPC shift in. It can't be a part. Okay. Then the fourth one, output increases following privatization. Lamai, when you privatize, what happens? When you privatize, now, if you have Lamai, yes, resource stock decrease, fine, right? What happens? C can't only be capital goods, Lamai, because now, then they have to, now infrastructure doesn't mean capital goods, Lamai. Don't get that confused. So infrastructure means your infrastructure, your roads, your all of that. So when they say something like infrastructure destruction, it's not capital goods reducing that. So you have to have that. Yeah, drought here is short term in the sense because the question is saying no, a drop in agriculture production as a result of a drought. So if it's only the production dropping, you can shift the PPC. Yes, the part B, Lama, you can take any good as the x-axis. You don't have to have that. I'm just taking the same things as previously. You can have consumer and capital, no problem. For part B, part C, part D, part E. It's just for part A, one of it has to be agriculture. Okay, part D, output increases following privatization. What happens when there is privatization? So privatization is something that we will learn in unit number 8 as well. What is privatization, Lamai? When you have a state-owned enterprise being sold to the private sector. So for example, now in Sri Lanka, you have, Lamai, think of the electricity board, Ceylon Electricity Board, CEB. Now, you know, Lamai, our CEB is very inefficient now. I've told you all, even the simple thing of reading the electricity meter. You don't have to have one person coming every month to read the electricity meter for you. You can, Lamai, easily digitize it. Where, based on how much is used, right? It's all monitored in a system. They will send you a message. You don't have to have a fellow manually coming and reading it for you. Or even forget about that. Your electricity board, electricity meter and water meter, there are two people. So why can't one person come and read the electricity meter and the water meter? I told you all this last time when we talked about command economy. The reason is, Lamai, because the state-owned enterprises, they want to give jobs, no? That's the objective of the government. So as a result, what happens now, they will be very inefficient. If they can get something done using technology very fast and with just little people, they might not do that. Instead, they will hire, let's say, 10, 15 people and do that. But if you privatize, Lamai, the moment you privatize, what happens? Your productivity, right? The moment you privatize, your productivity, Lamai, your efficiency starts to improve. And so you end up using the latest technology, you end up using, all of that. So as a result, what can happen, Lamai? The PPC itself will shift because it's a productivity increase that will happen, Lamai. So it's not a point moving here. Okay. No, not private, public can only shift in private. No, so here productivity improves no overall. Now, maybe for example, Lamai, so what happens is, right now you can't call them inefficient, right? So right now the fellow coming and reading your meter, he's just doing a normal thing. He's not inefficient. But if you privatize, they become even more productive. That's what I'm trying to say. So not that right now you're inside the PPC. Right now the fellow is fully employed. He's working 8 hours a day. He's going from house to house. He's reading the meter. No issue. But the moment you privatize, you become even more efficient. As a result, PPC will shift up. Yes, that can lead to economic growth. We'll talk about these now in unit number 8, privatization and all of that is that. Okay. No, it's not connected to any type of goods, Lamai. In general, you can use X and Y, consumer, public, anything is okay. Okay. Yeah, you can use as capital consumer goods, not an issue, as long as you shift. Okay. Then the last one, implementation of a skill development program for workers in both industries. That is easy, If you have a skill development program, now what happens? Your human capital will improve. So if your human capital improves, then the PPC will shift both. So whatever goods you have taken, consumer capital, hari, X and Y, hari, whatever that is there, what happens? The PPC list from workers in which industries? Says it. Workers in, it has to be both industries. Sorry, if it says in which industry, sorry, correct that time. It has to be in both industries. Okay. So then what happens? PPC will shift out. So again, 1.5 marks here, a small half a mark for this thing. That's the PPC story there. So we considered it to be capital goods industry only. Also product, not capital goods only. In both of it shifts. It's shifting both, Lamai. Because if there's skill development program in the industries, it has to shift the PPC both. It's just like the part B. It has to shift in both. So I will leave it there. I'm not going into very much detail, guys, because I get around 100 questions in the chat box. I can't individually reply to one by one because sometimes your question is already gone. So some main things here and there that I find, I will go to. Okay. And now question, what does your question say? Question says, the word was confusing with the word which. Implementation of a skill development program for workers in, there is a which industries. Says which industries? Yeah, but okay. Sorry, that's a small typo. But even though it says which industries, Lama, you can't say it's one of the industries. So there is no, if there is a skill development program in the industries that are there, you can't assume that it's one industry. So you will have that. You have to show the point movement by arrows. Okay. If the PPC is shifting, you have to draw the arrow and okay. So I will leave that there. That's question number 3. Then going into Lamai, question number 4. Question number 4 is the easy one. They're just asking you, identify the behavior of opportunity cost, whether it is constant, increasing or decreasing in each of the following situations. Okay. The first one is X and Y are close substitutes. So if the two goods are close substitutes, Lamai, you can't say that the opportunity cost will be constant. I'll give you an example of Lamai, tea and coffee. Now, tea and coffee are close substitutes. In the morning, instead of tea, you can drink coffee. But that doesn't mean Lamai, the opportunity cost will be constant because how you produce tea and how you produce coffee is different. The resources are not homogeneous. Can you use the tea plant to make coffee? Can you use the coffee plant to make tea? Can you use a machine that is used to extract tea, a thing to extract coffee? No, it's completely 2 different production processes. So just because the 2 goods are close substitutes, you can't say that there will be constant opportunity cost. There could be situations, right? There could be, maybe if something is like bread and bun, maybe you can argue saying it's constant, but that also is not perfectly the same. So where will it be constant opportunity cost is Lamai? If the two goods are perfect substitutes. Now, what's the difference between a perfect substitute and a close substitute? Okay. If it's perfect substitute, then I will say constant. Now, a perfect substitute is something like, for example, one brand of tea and another brand of tea. Let's say La OG tea and Lipton tea. Those are perfect substitutes. They're exactly the same. Now, their opportunity cost can be constant. Another example could be, let's say, for example, exactly the same thing. So if it is a perfect substitute, I agree it can be constant opportunity cost. But since you're talking about close substitutes, right, it has to be increasing opportunity cost. Okay, because just because it's close substitute, the production process can be different. So resources can be non-homogeneous. So as a result, you will have increasing opportunity cost. Then part B is saying number of units of X that has to be sacrificed to produce units of Y that has to be sacrificed to produce a unit of X remains constant. That itself is constant opportunity cost. Right. The production possibility curve is a straight line, constant. Supply curves of both goods are horizontal straight lines. And that's an interesting point that I want you all to learn, Lamai. Do you all remember in unit number 2? In unit number 2, when we talked about the law of supply, we had, Lamai, a upward sloping supply curve. Remember the second reason for the law of supply. The second reason for the law of supply was the increasing marginal opportunity cost. Remember that? We'll learn that in unit number 2. Right? Why does the supply curve slope upwards? The supply curve slope upwards because to produce more and more, the opportunity cost of producing increases. So as a result, the producer says, look here, only if you give me a higher price, I will produce here. Remember that story? So that is why the supply curve slopes upwards. Okay. But here, why do you think the supply curve is horizontal then? Why do you think, Lamai, the producer is willing to supply more and more and more, even at that same price? Producer is saying, all right, I will supply even more and more and more. I don't want an increase in price. Because his opportunity cost is what then? Why do you think his supply curve is horizontal? His supply curve is horizontal, Lamai, because his opportunity cost is constant. Because if he has increasing opportunity cost, you will have an upward sloping supply curve. These are that difficult points. I'm trying to put that into your head. Don't worry too much about it, but that's the whole point of the revision class, not to do Baba type of questions. No. So learn, right? Make notes, learn, try to connect it with unit number 2. I know some of you all are blank with unit number 2, but revision thing, they all have learned unit number 2 in theory. So when I say law of supply, you should remember those things. Okay. So then here, when your opportunity cost is constant, Lamai, the producer will not want a higher price. He will be willing to supply any quantity at that prevailing price. So that's why we say constant opportunity cost here as well. Part D. Then part E says fixed costs are an important part of production cost of both goods. So fixed cost, Lamai. Now, if I will explain what that part is, right? So just think, if now, okay, think of my class value. Okay. Let's say in my class, now what are my variable costs in my class? Take my revision class that I'm doing. My biggest variable cost for this class is one is tute printing, one is marking your papers. Those are my variable costs, the cost that changes with my number of students. My Zoom cost, my admin salaries, my website maintenance, those don't change whether I have 50 students or 60 students. Those won't change, right? Those will be fixed. Now just think, let's say in this revision class, right? Try to understand. In this revision class, if I don't give you a printed tute, then my tute printing cost is completely gone. I just give you a PDF. I don't mark your papers. I tell you, Lamai, while doing the paper, you itself mark by yourself. Right? I will tell you. Then if it's correct, you give the mark by yourself and you see how much you get. So let's say I do that. No printed papers, no marked papers. My variable cost is completely gone. Now I don't have any variable cost. Now I only have fixed cost, Zoom cost, maintenance, right? Website maintenance, admin salary, only that. So if fixed cost is a big part of my production, if that is the case in my revision class, no printed tutes, no marked papers. Now most of my cost is fixed cost. Now, if one or more student joins Lamai, does my cost increase a lot? does my cost really increase? Now, I am not printing tutes and giving also. I am not marking the papers and giving also. So even if 10 or 15 people join, does my cost really increase? No, right? So then you can't have increasing opportunity cost. No? So then if fixed cost is a big part, then you will have my constant opportunity cost. If variable cost is a big part, then your opportunity cost will be increasing. So here, because fixed costs are a big part, I will again say constant opportunity cost here. So these points are product Amarui. Just try to put that here and there. Sometimes in your A-level paper, they won't go into this extent also. But the more you know, the better it is, no? Because we are not targeting for a 75, we'll target for something much more. Okay, fine. Then question number 5. Yes, it says fixed year also. Question number 5 says, the diagram below shows the production possibility curve of a economy. They're asking, briefly explain what would happen to the current and future living standards moving from a point X to Y. Now, at point X, you're producing very little capital goods, a lot of consumer goods. So can you all tell me, what about your current living standard? Current living standard. Is it high or low? Right now, remember, living standard is measured based on the consumer goods you produce. Right? So consumer goods, and then you have more variety, more food varieties, more clothing varieties. So you're producing a lot of consumer goods. So current living standard is actually high, Lama, because they're producing a lot of consumer goods. They're producing right now at point X. But if they move from point X to point Y, right? If they produce, Lama, more capital goods, what do you think will happen in the, sorry, if they switch to more capital goods, what do you think can happen? So they're asking, briefly explain what would happen to current and future living standards from move from X to Y. So look at my answer here. I'm saying when a country produces more capital goods and few consumer goods, it is investing more in the future productive capacity and less in intermediate consumption. In the short term, this could lead to lower current living standard and there could be a few consumer goods available. So now here am I, the answer is not saying at point X. No. Let me rephrase this answer. They're asking you, right now, if you move from X to Y. So right now you are at X. Yes, you have current living standard. But if you move from X to Y, what will happen to your current living standard right now? Right now, country decided, no, we are not going to produce at point X. We are going to move to point Y. Right now, what will happen to their current living standard? Will it increase or decrease? Current living standard right now will decrease, Lama, because they had a lot of consumer goods. The moment they move from X to Y, they are reducing consumer goods. So immediately, your living standard will fall. Let's say Sri Lanka decides we are not going to produce a lot of food and clothes and all. We'll put all of that to make buildings and factories. So immediately what happens? Your current living standard will start to decrease. But what do you think happens in the future? With time, now you're producing more and more capital goods. So with time, Lamai, the buildings, the machines, the factories, the equipment that you're making, what happens? Those Lamai start to produce more goods, no? Your economy will grow a lot in the future. As a result, what do you think can happen to Lamai? Your future living standards. Your future living standards. So right now you're sacrificing. Your future living standards will increase. Now that's the same life lesson that you have as well. You sacrifice your current consumption for a better future that you have. So that's these 2 points is what I want you all to have in an answer. You can put that into a small paragraph. It doesn't have to be as big as this. Even a small 2-3 line paragraph is completely okay. Yeah, that's question 5. Then moving to the next question number 6. Now, question number 6 is a bit of a different question. I don't think this exact format of a question you will get in a A-level paper, but I put this for you to learn the whole thing there. It's about living standard and it's about consumer goods. No, current living standard will decrease because currently you were producing more consumer goods. Now the moment you move to Y, your living standard decreases. So currently you had high living standards, you move to Y means it reduces. And after that, more and more capital goods means the future it will improve. That's the story that I'm pointing that. Right. Last question also, yes. Okay, so we'll see. So now coming into question number 6. So question number 6 and even the last one, that is question number 8, were a bit of different questions, not very common questions that you will might find in your A-level paper. But why I put this is one of this they can ask. They might not ask all of this like this as part A, part B, part C, 1, 2, 3, 4, but maybe 2 of this they can put and they can ask. So we look at the thing. Question number 6 is saying, draw a production possibility curve reflecting increasing opportunity cost for economy. Producing 2 goods, let's say public sector and private sector goods. So here I'm saying public sector goods means produced by the government at vertical axis, and private sector goods in the horizontal axis. See, now you can't change the axis. Now here you can't put consumer and capital. Now here if there is something like productivity or some privatization, the answer could be a little different, right? I'll show you. So public sector goods in the vertical, private sector goods in the horizontal. You can't put 2 other goods because I have given. And then, right, that's the first part. So if you've drawn the PPC overall, showing an increasing opportunity cost, that is this one. Okay, the first one. Don't worry about all the things here. You show this red color PPC, I will give you 1 mark. So 1 mark for this original. You don't have to have numbers, don't worry. Then the second one. Part B is saying, mark the following points in your diagram. First one, point B, which shows the production following the election of a new government, which privatizes many public sector services but maintains full employment. Now, see, earlier how you answered the privatization question is different from how you answer privatization now. So here, because the 2 goods itself is public goods and private goods. Right now you're producing at point A. Right now you're producing at point A. Now they are telling you some new government has come. As a result, they are not talking about any efficiency story, right? What are they saying? Now they are saying government which was running certain things, now they have privatized it. So now the amount of public goods should reduce, the private goods should increase. So you're moving along the PPC to point A to point B. That's the first one there. Hey, percent is fine. I'll come to that question. Okay, that's the first part. So see if you have done that, I'll give you 1 mark. Part 2 is saying point C where there is unemployment. That's easy, So unemployment is any point inside the PPC. So if you have marked a point inside the PPC, I will give you 1 unemployment. Then point D, when the economy is in a recession. Now recession is also a point inside. But I've told you, Lamai, when you show a recession, show it with an arrow. Okay, show it with an arrow. So here, a recession, I draw an arrow and show a point inside. It could be next to point C also. It could be even inside point C also, no problem. But it has to be an arrow and a point moving in. That's a recession. Then point E, where the state takes over production of all the goods. State means government. If the government takes the production of all the goods, then what happens? Then you will only be producing public goods. See, point E is at the point where you're producing only public goods. So red is your PPC, original one. B is on the PPC more towards public, more towards private. C is a point in. D is an arrow and in. Point E is 100% public goods. Point D can be shown from A. Yeah, no problem. That's not issue. So A to D, E, that's also okay. Then put the D next to C. Yeah, that's okay. That's fine. Any point inside the PPC is okay, but it has to be arrow. Now going into my part C. Part C is saying, now draw 2 new production possibility curves on the same diagram to show the following. The first one, the position after a devastating war. So there's been a very big war, Lamai. Now you all need to understand when there is a war, what happens? The resource stock reduces, no, people die, capital gets destroyed. So as a result, what happens? PPC will shift in. So either, Lama, you have to label the PPC, or now you have to label, Lama, because otherwise you can't find this now here. So because you're drawing multiple PPCs, so you shift the PPC in and then you say, look here, this is the PPC after war. And then part 2 is, Lamai, there is an increase in productivity by 50% in the public goods and by 100% in the private goods. Now, if they have a 50% and 100%, I'll show you how you can show this, right? So a 50% increase in public, and this means, Lamai, the amount of public goods that you can produce should have increased by 50%. Either you should, Lamai, have a proper PPC. Now, let's say your PPC, okay, look carefully. Let's say this is your PPC right now. Now, half of this is here now. So then 50% increase, somewhere around there. Public goods, 50% increase. Private goods, 100% increase. So if this is 100, then this is another 100. So it has to be something like this. This has to be like a 50%. This has to be 100%. But you can't, it's not easy to show it that way, Lama, because you already have a big PPC here. And drawing it is not easy. So then what you can do is, Lama, you can show that with numbers. So you can show here, look here, maybe this could be 100. You can put any number, right? Either you should show it with proper proportions or show it with numbers. So this is 100, 50% increase now. Now it has to be 150. Then if this was 100, if it's a 100% increase, then it has to be 200. That's why I put the numbers there. So either you have to have numbers to show a proportionate change. This is 50 and this is 100% here. Or you have to have a proper distance in your axes. This is 50% now, it has to increase by half. 100% now, it has to double. Then you have to show it that way. So either way, I have shown it through the numbers. If you have doubled it and shown also, no problem. So this last one, I'm telling you, it can be either with the numbers, either through numbers or a proportionate shift. So you have to shift it by 50 and 100% properly there. One of the two. Just putting arrow and saying 50 and 100 is not enough. And then you have to label the PPC saying this is the PPC after the increase in productivity. If it's not proportional, then it has to have numbers. Otherwise, it has to be proportional. One of the two. If you didn't put both, then you don't get the full mark for that question. So you only get 1 out of 2. No, you don't need an explanation. I'm just a normal, this thing is enough. I'm just saying to draw. So for this, I will not give marks for explanation. If you have separately given it somewhere, that is okay, but no marks here for explanation. That's question 6. Yeah, PPC 1, PPC 2, but you have to probably label it based on what you have written. Now I will reasonably give marks. I don't worry, I'm not that strict in the marks thing. Logically, based on what you have written, I will give you marks. But usually the marking is a little bit strict because I want you all to perfect your answers. Okay. Okay. 100% increase is from the initial PPC, not from the war PPC. Then we go to question number 7. Question number 7 says, all points on a production possibility curve. Yes, you remember the term, it's easy. Production possibility curve are economically efficient. Explain the concept of productive, allocative, and economic efficiency using a PPC. So you can even start your answer by answering the first part of that question now, which I have not. Are all points on the PPC economically efficient? You can start your answer by saying no, right? All points on the PPC are not. No. All points are not economically efficient. You can start your answer that way. And then you can now go and write, Lamai, talk about, the question says, no, explain the concept of production, allocative, and economic efficiency. So what is economic efficiency? Now, this is the same story that we had in the tute. So I'm not going into detail. So what is economic efficiency? 1 mark. What is productive efficiency? 1 mark and the conditions. What is allocative efficiency? 1 mark with the use of a PPC. So you need to have a diagram. Then for drawing the proper diagram and showing, look here, all the points are productively efficient, but only one special point is economical efficient. I'll give you 2 marks. This is like a direct theory question. I haven't really confused you or twisted it around. I've just asked you to explain this. Okay. Why no? Because all the points are not economically efficient. All the points on a PPC are productively efficient. Economic efficiency is only the point, only one particular point where you have productive and allocative efficiency both. So you can't say all points are economical. All points are productively efficient. So that is gone. Then you come to the last one. Sorry, 8. Sorry, 9 was the other practical one. Third graph by combining productive and allocative graphs. Fine, fine. Depending on how you are written, I'll give you marks now. 3 points is A, B, C. Yeah. Depends on how you have explained. So it doesn't have to be exactly my way. How you explain, I'll give you marks. Okay. Then the 8th one. Explain how production possibility curves might be used in assessing a country's economic performance. Now, how do you analyze a country's economic performance, Lamai? You can look at things like economic growth. Now, how do you know is Sri Lanka doing good or not? Now, for example, how do you analyze your performance in school? They look at your attendance. They look at your term test marks. They look at, let's say, prizes you would have won. They might look at, let's say, how attentive and how this one you are in class. So there are certain criteria that they look at, right? So same way. So how do you assess a country's performance using a PPC? So how do you assess, Lama? You can look at things like economic growth. You can show that on a PPC. If the PPC, you can even draw the PPC and show perfect. But since it's a 3-mark question, I don't want you to go that detail, but even if drawn perfect. So you can look at economic growth through a PPC. You can look at Lamai, how things like this happen here. Resource allocation, unemployment and employment. So if you have full employment, that's a good thing. That means you'll be operating on the PPC. But if you have something like unemployment, then you're operating in the PP, inside the PP. That means you're not really performing that well. So you can look at things like that. So economic decline, yes, economic growth. The opposite of that is economic decline, right? You can see. You can look at, for example, a recession and a depression. You can say. I would say scarcity is not really something that will assess a country's economic performance. I think things like scarcity, things like opportunity cost, Lamai, those are anyway there for every economy. So I'm not asking you, Lamai, what you can show on a PPC. I'm asking you, how can you analyze a country's performance using a PPC? So how do you analyze a country's performance? You look at their employment. Have they created jobs and all? You look at, is the economy growing, right? Have they faced a recession? Are they going through a depression? That's how you can analyze whether economy is good or not, right? You can't analyze whether economy is good or not by looking at scarcity or opportunity cost. So scarcity opportunity cost, I will not give you marks there, but overall to talk about it, plus one mark for 2 different points. So because the question says explain now, you have to explain now. If you can show that on a PPC if you want, right? So you can show a point on the PPC as full employment, inside as unemployment, right? Economic growth, you can show by a PPC shifting inside, decline PPC shifting inside. That's also okay. For 3-mark question, isn't it enough if you just write one para? It depends, Lama. It's not about the marks and the size that you answer. So it depends on the points that you give as well. Current and future living standard, maybe that also could be a nice point to write. Yeah, here the first para is a little bit important. Okay, so you can even talk a little bit about current and future living standard. Now, why I gave you a question like this is Lamai. Now, this kind of question, I'll just explain the story to you, right? The logic behind why I put something like this. The thing that I want you all to prepare is Lamai with this whole revision and all of it. Prepare for questions that you would have not seen before. In your A-level paper, I'll tell you, around 70% of the questions you get are from past papers. They switch it around and they give you. But everything is not from past papers. There are new questions that come. Questions that sometimes might not even be directly in your tute. So the more and more answers you write, then Lamai, your answer practice comes. Then you, even if something that you have not even prepared for, if a question like that comes, you will somehow you gave a gahana. You will get something done. But that is what I want you all to do, Lamai. Everything in the tute will not exactly come in your paper. They will twist it around. They might throw a new question. They will do things like that. You need to prepare. And yes, if it is just the tute to copy and paste, everyone will get A. No, man. Not everyone gets A. No, only around 10-12% get A for econ. So out of 100 people, only 12 people might get A. That is because you can't directly copy and paste. So work hard. Choice also I would not give us this thing. Current future living standard is okay. That could be another one. Okay. Then we go to the last question of this paper. So this question has not been printed properly in your this thing. I don't know why. My PDF has it properly. I think the printing place doesn't properly get this diagram. So I would have sent you all the PDF. I sent a screenshot of this diagram also. No free marks or excuses. Look at that PDF or diagram and get the paper done. Now, don't ask me for a free mark. Question 9. Answer the following questions based on the PPC given. So there are 9 questions, 1 mark each. So this question itself is all about opportunity cost, moving from here to here, there to there, right, and all of that. Okay. So first one, what is the opportunity cost from moving from B to C? I taught you all this last week. Huh? Moving from B to C. So when you're moving from point B to point C, here you're producing 800 capital goods. You're moving from B to C, you're reducing capital goods by 200. You're increasing consumer goods, but opportunity cost is what you sacrifice. No? So opportunity cost is 200 units of capital goods. Now, if you have just said 200, you will only get half the marks. Huh? You have to be very specific. What is the opportunity cost? Opportunity cost is not 200, 200 monada. You have to say 200 capital goods or 200 units of capital goods. Anything is fine. Even the word unit is not there, it's okay. It has to be 200 capital goods or 200 units of capital goods. Just 200, you're not going to get full marks. Then opportunity cost of moving from C to B. Now you're going the other way. Then what happens? You have to sacrifice 40 consumer goods. That's second one. Third one, opportunity cost of producing 600 capital goods. Now here you're not moving from one point to another. They're asking you, when you produce 600 capital goods, what is your opportunity cost? Because you're producing 600 capital goods, how much of consumer goods can't you produce? You can't produce 20. Anna, that is your answer. So there, 20 units of consumer goods. Then, what is the opportunity cost of producing 40 consumer goods? When you produce 40 consumer goods, you can produce 800 capital goods. How much of capital goods can't you produce? 200 capital goods you can't produce. So there the answer is 200 capital. The next one is asking what is the opportunity cost of moving from G to B? So G is over here, B is over here. So going from G to B, are you sacrificing anything? No, opportunity cost is 0. Now the next interesting one is the next one. What's the opportunity cost of moving from G to F? Now you all will see, now Balanna, when going from G to F, now G is here, 550 and 25. When going from G to F, yes, you're increasing capital goods by 150. You're also reducing consumer goods by 5. So therefore, you can say opportunity cost is 5 units of consumer goods. You can say that when you're going from G to F, opportunity cost is what you're sacrificing. G to F, then consumer goods 5 is going down. Then you can say opportunity cost is 5 consumer goods. But why is that wrong, Lamai? That is because for you to increase, right? For you to increase capital from 550 to 700, do you have to necessarily give up 5 consumer goods? Do you have to? Can you do it without that? You can, right? You don't have to necessarily give up. For you to increase 150 units of capital, you can go from here to here. You don't have to give up consumer goods. No. While producing 25 consumer goods, you can produce 700 capital goods. Your consumer good production is reducing not because of opportunity cost, it's because you're inefficient. So that's why the opportunity cost is 0. You don't have to necessarily reduce that limit. That's what I want you all to understand. When going from G to F, yes, according to our graph, it's 5 reduction. But that 5 of consumer good reduction doesn't have to definitely happen. You can increase the capital goods here without sacrificing your consumer. That is why my answer says 0 and not. Yeah, you can say no opportunity cost. 0 or no opportunity cost. That is also accepted. This point F, so currently we are losing 5. We are losing 5, but we don't have to lose that 5. We are not losing that 5 because of a trade-off. We are not losing that 5 because not because you're going to increase capital goods. You're not losing 5 because you're increasing capital goods. You're losing that 5 because you're inefficient. So opportunity cost wise, there is nothing. You can't put a dash lemma. You have to write something, right? So you have to either say 0 or you have to say no. You can't just put a dash. I can't hear your voice too loudly. I think maybe we can leave and join. I'm not very sure if what the case is. So just to re-explain that again, Lamai, when you're going from point G to point F, now at point G, you're producing 550 capital, 25 consume. When you go from Lamai G to F, you're increasing capital by 150. Right? To increase capital goods by 150, the question is, do you have to give up consumer goods? Do you have to give up, do you have to give up these 5 consumer goods? Not necessarily. You can increase capital goods even without giving this up. Here, the production is going down because you're inefficient, Laman. You can do this even without giving up. For example, I'll give a point, let's say point V. You can produce at point V. You can produce 25 consumer goods and also produce 700 capital goods. So there is no opportunity cost really. The reduction is happening not because of opportunity cost, the reduction is happening because you're inefficient. So therefore, I would say there is no opportunity cost. No, if you move within a point inside lemma, usually there is no opportunity cost involved. If you're on the PPC, there will be an opportunity cost. Okay, right. Then the next one, what is the opportunity cost of moving from point G to point A? Look at this. Now this, there is an opportunity cost. Now think, following up with the question that someone asked me now. Right. Now, look at this lemma. Okay, read carefully. From point G to point A, now, can you go from 550 capital to 1000 capital? Is there a way that you can go here without reducing consumer goods, like how you went from G to F? Now, G to F now, without reducing the consumer, you could have gone. Can you go from G to A without reducing consumer goods? Is there any way? Now, G to F now, to produce 700 capital goods now, you can at least move straight. But you can't produce 1000 capital goods without giving up. So if you're going to produce G to A, going from G to A, you have to definitely sacrifice this 25 line. So that is why in this one, I am saying the opportunity cost is 25 units of consumer. Try to understand those two things properly, Lamai. This and this. If you, right, the thing that I want to put into your head is, if you can get to a point without sacrificing anything, then there is no opportunity cost. When you go from G to F, that means to increase capital goods to 700, you don't have to reduce consumer because you can produce at this point. At this point, you can produce. You can go to 700 capital without reducing consumer. The opportunity cost was 0. But when going from G to A, you can't do that. Right? Yeah, it's a movement from point in time. But try to understand it properly. Just because you're in a point inside, that doesn't mean there is always no opportunity cost. But when you're moving from G to A to increase capital goods to 1000, now you can't produce at this point. No, methana produce karanna bad. That's outside the PPC. So you have to give up something, right? You have to give up the consumer goods that you're producing. So you have to give up a 25 consumer. So that's that. Then the last two one. G to B, there is no opportunity cost now. G to B because you can increase production of both. So there's definitely no opportunity cost. I'll come on. Sorry, last one if there's mistake, I'll come. So they're asking calculate the marginal opportunity cost when moving from A to B. So when moving from A to B, Lamai, what is your marginal opportunity cost? I think there's a small error in my answer. Don't worry, I'll correct. So when going from point A to point B, so when you're going from point A to point B, how do you calculate opportunity cost? Opportunity cost is Lamai, what you sacrifice divided by what you get. So what are you foregoing when going from A to B? You're foregoing 200 capital goods. What are you gaining? 40 consumer goods. So then foregone divided by gained. 200 divided by how much? 200 divided by 40. It's not 4, it has to be 40. So then how much do you get as an answer? Your answer has to be Lamai 5 units of capital goods, not 50. It has to be 5. 200 divided by 40, 5 units of capital goods. And then the last one, calculate the marginal opportunity cost when moving from D to C. So you're at point D, you're now moving to C. So what are you sacrificing? 15 consumer goods. What are you gaining? You're gaining 300 capital goods. So sacrificing 15, gaining 300, you get 0.05 consumers. You have to mention the good lemma. If you have just mentioned the number, half of the mark will be gone. If you're just saying 5, then you only get half a mark because opportunity cost is always what you are sacrificing. So I will mark that a little bit strict. So that you perfect your answer on your head. Okay. Right. That is the paper. Is that okay? The paper itself, I think, Lamai, will be a little hard living. So don't expect very easy questions. Then there is nothing that we are learning, no man. So you do the other papers, right? You do the take-home paper. I haven't made it that hard. Take-home paper is very direct, right? Just for you all to write easy answers. I don't make that hard. The past papers also, that is past papers, no man. So that's not something that I have made. If you can help that. So the revision paper usually will be a little tricky, will be a little hard, but don't get demotivated because of that. What's a good mark for this paper? Look at the marks overall and tell you. So if everyone has got very good marks, then the good mark will be a little bit higher. So, but I feel overall for any of these papers, Lamai, paper of a good standard, right now with 1 year to go, if you all can at least get to around a 60, I feel you can definitely, with the 1 year to go, Lama, you can increase another 30, 35, get to the 90, 95. So right now, I don't know. How much is your average mark, Lamai, overall for your first 3 papers? Paper 1, paper 2, paper 3. If you just get your average and divide by 3. To get the average, then you have to do all the 3 papers and should have submitted it. Roughly, if your average mark is close to around, I would feel at least in this range, at least here, right? If it is more than that, perfect, right? If you're at least around here, I feel Lama, you can easily get a A. But easily get a A again, you have to get the work done. You can easily get a anyway. If you do all the work properly for the next 1 to 1.5 months, you can easily get that A. But not the A, you can even go a little bit beyond that also. Right now itself, Lama, if you're around, let's say, a 65 plus, I feel easily that 90 is something that you can achieve. So there is time, right? That's the good news for you all. Unlike the 2025 fellows, 25 fellows have 4 months left. For them, if they want to get to a 90, they should at least by now be around 75. In 4 months, you can't increase 40, 50 marks. But you all have time. You all have more than a year to go. So on your end, make sure that you get that. So don't get demotivated. Don't be sad. For some of y'all, this might be the last day that I might be teaching y'all. For those who continue, will continue. But for the others, don't get demotivated or sad. Lamai, work hard, right? That's the only thing in life that will guarantee you to get somewhere there. And you don't expect, Lamai, don't expect immediate results in everything that you do. Now, that is something that I personally also believe when it comes to my classes also. Now, when it comes to my classes, Lamai, when I started classes, I never did a physical class. I started online. Online, I started small. So started online, started small. Little by little, Lamai, you continuously work on your thing. You continuously work. Now, 5 years down the line, I can proudly tell lamai compared to where I was, I've come a much long way. So that's what I want you also. Immediately you will not see changes, lamai. Right now you might do something, you might not see the result of it right now. But 1-2 years down the line, when you look back and see that hard work that you put in goes a long way. Now, even I'll just tell you, now all of you all ask me, sir, do we have a quiz? Do we have a quiz? Right? Every class, someone asks me, no, someone comes and asks me, so do you have a quiz? Now, to make that quiz, Lama, it takes time. It's not something that I can just all of a sudden make a quiz. Now, today also, I came back home from work by around 5:30ish. So class is at 7. So I took that around 1 hour to make that quiz of 30 questions. So it's difficult, right? Going to work, coming home, sitting just after home, I do that. It's not easy, but I know somewhere down the line, I might not immediately see a result of it, but somewhere down the line, that might be somewhat helpful for something. So that is something that I want you all also to believe in, Lavai. You will not have immediate results always, but whatever that you do, you will. The inappropriate message is not from me, Lavai, it's from someone else who is renamed as me. I think now the message should be for everyone. Don't worry, right? So what was I saying? So don't look at immediate results. Things will fall into place. Now, even in terms of when you are studying Lama, don't think of too much of things. Now, right now, from today onwards, if you can Lama study for 2 hours a day, from today onwards, Lama, make a plan. You don't have to study for hours and hours. Make a plan, Lama. Maybe 1 hour early in the morning, 1 hour at night. Now, studying means not doing homework. Now, doing my revision paper is not studying. Maybe you study this area, that could be studying, Lama, where you do something on your own, not doing homework or anything. So just imagine if you put Lama 2 hours of studying for a day. Now, right now, you will think, sir, 2 hours, what can I even do, sir? You can't even cover much, no, sir. In 2 hours, you might only study, let's say, 5-10 pages in the econ tute. But you will see, so what's the point? But look at Lamai 1 year down the line. 1 year down the line, those 2 hours is around 700 hours of study. That's a lot of time that you have, Lamai. That's a lot of work that you have done. 1 year down the line, when you look back and see, I have studied 2 hours every single day, then you will start seeing the results. Then you will see, oh, your marks have improved. Today you study for 2 hours, don't expect tomorrow your marks to go up. So that's the whole story that I want to put to you. Yes, private candidates, definitely you can go for an island rank, so don't get discouraged. You're also treated the same way, just like a normal school student is treated. The theory class exams, I'll let you know, but I'm trying to finish it off this week because next week we are starting with unit 5. Right. So we can get to the quiz. Do you all want a 5-minute break before the quiz, or shall we directly get to the quiz? Consumer sovereignty. No, 2 hours per subject only. That means 6 hours for a day. No? Right now, even overall 2 hours should be okay. What do you want? Quiz now or 5-minute break? I'll go with the okay. Answers are yes, it's a Kahoot quiz. Right. Okay. Majority is now. So I'm going with now. Okay. Whatever you all want, I will give. Okay. So give me a couple of minutes until I load the quiz now. Okay. So you will get your papers marked. Okay. Right. So the quiz is on the screen. I'll wait for a few moments for all of you all to join. Don't worry. I'll send the link. Hold on. So let me send the link. So the link is on the chat box. You can either click on the link and join, or else you can go to this website, www.kahoot.it. They'll ask you for a game pin. Enter the number that you see on the screen. That is 470784. 470784. Enter your name and join. So there are 30 MCQs. That means it will take some time. It will not finish in 10 questions. It will take some time. Again, the faster you all answer, the more points that you get. So I want all of you all do join. You can join from the same device that you're on Zoom. You just have to open this on your web browser. You can use multiple devices. Anything that you want is okay. Same device, multiple device, phone, laptop, computer, iPad, anything is fine. So let me send the link again. Hold on, hold on, hold on. That's the link again. Okay, so I'll wait for a minute. There are 100 people already. There is around 140 in the meeting right now. No, it's not limited. The limit is 200 participants. So I think all of you all can join. So even if you go out in the middle, Lama, you can come back. Don't worry. Even if one question is gone, you can still come back and join because there are 30 questions. It's a long quiz. Huh? Okay, so shall we start then? There are 111 people on board, 114, 15. Number seems to be increasing. You should be able to join them. I'm not very sure if you are not able to join what there is. It's not limited. So there's 120 now. There's just 20 people who are not. You can use multiple any device, phone, laptop, kahoot.it. Game pin is 470487. Enter your name and then you join. Okay, so I'm starting. You can even okay, I'll wait for a minute. Yeah, after quiz, we are done. Class is over. Just some final remarks and then we are done. Okay. Right. So starting, you can even join from the middle, Lama, for those who haven't joined. By any chance, if you really can't join, at least give me answers on the chat box. Okay. Now, let's start. Unit 1. Question 1. A point inside the production possibility frontier is better than points on the production possibility frontier, is unattainable, indicates full employment, productively inefficient. What is a point inside the PPC? And remember, faster you answer, more points you get. And there are 30 questions, so usually it will be the person who gets most of it right, not the person who answers the fastest and get it wrong. Okay, first one is the green one. Good. Okay, that's the leaderboard there. Looking at number 2. The branch of economics that studies the overall economy rather than decisions of individuals and households is called normative economics, microeconomics, macroeconomics, positive economics. Right, that's macro. Okay, no. Good. Okay, leaderboard looks like that. Still very early in the game. Going to the next, question 3. An economic good is one which does not use up scarce resources, is supplied competitively, may or may not have a price, makes a profit. What's an economic good? Which of this could be a characteristic of one of them? So you can't say it's supplied competitively. Supplied competitively means there is competition in supply. Now, for example, take Sri Lankan Railways. Now, Sri Lankan Railways doesn't have competition element. So you can't say there is competitive supply. Now, may or may not have a price is your correct answer. So economic goods usually have a price, but there could be economic goods with no price also. Right now, like this class that we are doing, I'm doing it for free. Okay, right. Leaderboard has changed, right? We have a new leader on top. Going to the next. Which of the following distances represents the new opportunity cost of producing OQ of good X in terms of good Y? This is not the exact same past paper question. Past paper question answer was MN. I have changed the question. So the new opportunity cost, now I'm not asking for the past paper question asked for the reduction in opportunity cost. There the answer was MN. Here I asked you what is the new opportunity cost. So only very few of you all got that right. Read the question. Nice. Have a new leaderboard. Next one. A production possibility curve might be shifted outward by each of the following except movement towards a more open approach to free trade, improvement in technology, decrease in unemployment, an increase in education levels of the general population. Which one will shift your PPC except which one? That means 3 of it will shift, 1 of it won't. I'm asking you the one that won't. The one that won't is a decrease in unemployment. When you have a more open approach to free trade, you're trading with other countries. When you trade with other countries, you can get new capital. As a result, and all your PPC will shift. But a decrease in unemployment is not a shift. No, it's a point moving towards your PPC. Okay. Right, leaderboard hasn't changed a lot. Okay. Then the 6th one. If resources were perfectly substitutable, which one of the following would be true? Scarcity would be eliminated. Output of goods could be increased at zero opportunity cost. Resources efficient in one industry would be efficient in the other. No country or individual would have a comparative advantage. Which one is correct? Okay. So resources are perfect substitutable means we are talking about constant opportunity cost there. No? So constant opportunity cost means resources efficient in one industry would also be efficient in the, they're perfectly substitutable. Okay, leaderboard has changed. Right. The next one. Question 7. Which the following is a fundamental aspect of a capitalist economy? Private ownership of property, central planners set wages, public ownership of resources, use of price mechanism. Capitalist economy. One. Price mechanism would have been right, Lama, if they said market economy. Remember, capitalist socialist is not based on price and planning. Capitalist and socialist is based on who owns the resources. So if the private sector owns the resources, we call it the capitalist economy. That's the more correct answer there. Right. Okay, now we have another leader. Leader keeps changing. Okay. Question 8. The term transition economy is used to describe a country that is adapting capital intensive methods in place of labor intensive, moving from central plan to market system, replacing a trade deficit with a trade surplus, moving from a low income category to a middle income category. What's the transitional economy? Which one? Economy moving from a planned economy to a market economy. That's what you call it, transitional economy. Okay, I need a word. Few people climbing back. Double the points. Which statement about the two countries is correct? They've given a PPC, you have 45 seconds. Country X has a higher opportunity cost than country Y in producing consumer goods. Both countries have the same future growth prospects. Both countries have identical opportunity cost. Both countries are, opportunity costs are increasing in both countries. This is a past paper question itself. The answer is the first one, Lama. If you calculate and see the opportunity cost of country X, right, to produce consumer goods is higher than country Y. Country X has to give up much more consumer goods than country Y. So capital goods. Okay, leaderboard has changed. Double the points there. So big changes in the leaderboard. Okay, next one. 10. In a market economy, personal income is determined by personal income. Factor price in the factor market and the quantity exchanged at that price. Factor price in the factor market and personal income taxes. Factor price in the factor market and government wage policy. Government factor price policies and subsidies. How do you determine personal income in a market economy? The answer is the first one. It's based on how much of factors of production you have and you exchange multiplied by the price that you get for it. Okay, so 10 questions done, 1/3 of the quiz done. So this is the leaderboard after 10 questions. Let me just take a screenshot of it and save and keep also to see whether it changes a lot. Okay, so oops, sorry. Hold on. Just have a leaderboard. Okay, so we'll move to the next step. Question number 11. Question number 11 says, along a country's production possibility frontier, the level of technology is changing. More of one good can be produced without giving up another. Resources are not being fully utilized. There is productive efficiency in the economy. Along the PPC, what can you say? One, two, three, four. Answer number four there is productive, efficient. See, all the others wrong. Okay, we have a new leader now. Going to the next. The degree of government involvement in an economy is greater in a market economy, a socialist market economy, a social market economy, a mixed economy. Out of these four, where is the government involvement the greatest? A socialist market, right? Like something like China, where the government owns the resources. So they have a lot of involvement. That is there. It can't be a mixed economy because mixed economy is what is broken into these two. So you have to be more specific. So blue one. Okay, leaderboard is changing. Question 30. In a competitive market with no externalities, allocative efficiency would exist if price equals marginal benefit, marginal revenue, marginal cost, average variable cost in all markets. Allocative efficiency, what is the condition? That's what I'm asking. The condition is not price equals marginal benefit. Price is anyway equal to marginal benefit. The condition is marginal cost has to be equal to marginal benefit. Or price has to be equal to marginal cost. Or marginal benefit has to be equal to marginal. So condition is not that it has to be equal to marginal benefit. It has to be equal to marginal cost. Because price and marginal benefit are anyway the same thing. And leaderboard has changed. We have a new leader again. Going to the next, 14. Which of the following is assumed in constructing a PPC? Assumption. Production technology is fixed, full employment, but not full production. Economy is using its resources inefficiently. Resources are utilized to produce only private goods. Which of this is an assumption when making the PPC? That's not hard one now. Technology is fixed, right? That is an assumption that you make. Okay, small changes in the leaderboard. Very tight on the top. First three. Next one. An economy has achieved productive efficiency when it has eliminated all negative externalities. Resources are used to allocate to produce goods and services most wanted. Marginal cost equals price. It is unable to produce more of one good without producing less of another. When have you achieved productive efficiency? The answer is the last one, Lamai, because if you have achieved productive efficiency, remember, you're operating on the PPC. So if you're on the PPC, Lamai, if you want to produce more of one good, you have to give up another. That's why we say it's unable to produce more of one good without producing less of another. You can't produce more of one without giving up another. So answer there is number 4, the green. Okay, small changes in the leaderboard. Next one. On a diagram of a production possibility frontier, opportunity cost is represented by a point inside the PPC, the slope of the PPC, a ray through the origin, a point on the vertical axis. The slope of the PPC. So if you have a constant straight line slope, you call constant opportunity cost. If you have like a concave slope, you call it increasing opportunity cost. Leaderboard, okay, a new leader again. Right? There is just 1 point of difference between the first and the second now. Okay, which of the following is necessary for a well-functioning capitalist economy, but not in a command economy? Centralized decision-making, monopoly, scarcity of resources, protection of property rights. Which one do you think is needed for a capitalist economy? We went through this, Lama, in class last week also. The last one, right? You need to have proper property rights. Because in a command economy, in a capitalist, when the private sector owns all the resources, who is going to provide that property right? That is very much needed there. Okay, leaderboard top 5 hasn't changed at all. Next one. A more complete definition for economics would be that economics is the study of how goods and services are produced without damaging the environment, how employment opportunities could be created, how scarce resources are used to satisfy unlimited wants, how countries trade goods and services in a global marketplace. Which one? Oh, nice. Except for 2 people, all of y'all got that right. I hope the 2 people who got it wrong, that was a careless mistake. Good. Okay, leaderboard is not changing. Very, very close. 19. Double the points. A free good has which of the following characteristics? It is usually gifted by nature. It has some degree of scarcity in relation to demand. Its consumption or production does not generate an externality. It is supplied by the government free of charge. A free good. Think of the examples, you can get your answer. So free goods are what? My sunlight, rain, those kind of things, right? So good. That's double the points. Usually how you define it is a good that is unlimited in supply, non-scarce, no opportunity cost. But I didn't give any of those answers in the options. I gave you a bit of a different answer. Okay, leaderboard has changed. Right. The next one. Question 20. Again, double the points. Production possibility frontiers are convex because the law of increasing opportunity cost, because of decreasing opportunity cost, because of inefficiencies in the economy, because resources are being used fully and efficiently. Why are they convex? Yes, concave is increasing opportunity cost. A concave is only bowed outwards. Convex is bowed inwards. So inwards is decreasing opportunity cost, not increasing opportunity cost. Okay, so 20 questions done. This is the leaderboard after 20 questions. So let me take a screenshot of this as well. You have the last 10 questions to go after this. Okay, let me take a screenshot. Okay, right. So then we'll go into the last 10 questions and then we are done. Question 21. Which of the following would cause an outward or rightward shift in the PPC? A decrease in natural resources, an increase in unemployment, an increase in inflation, an increase in the capital stock. That's an easy one. So answer the green there. Okay, leaderboard hasn't changed. Go to the next. 22. The production possibility curve can be used to illustrate each of the following with the exception of potential output, opportunity cost, consumer demand, economic growth. Consumer demand, remember my potential output is the PPC itself, right? Potential output is what the economy can produce if they use all their resources fully. No? So that's the PPC itself represents the potential output. So you can represent potential output with the PPC. So what you can't represent is demand. You can't show demand on a PPC. No. So, okay, small changes. Next one. Which the following characterizes the social market economy? Public ownership of all resources, strong state role in the provision of welfare services, private ownership of all resources, absence of a regulatory framework for the well-functioning of the price system. Which one? Answer number 2, right? The state or the government has a very strong role in providing welfare services in a social market. And remember, the social justice role is very strong for the government. Okay, leaderboard in the top 5 is not changing. 24, double the points. According to production possibilities data, it can be concluded that you have 45 seconds for this. Good X and Y use homogeneous resources. Combination of 3 units of X and 9 units of Y is attainable. There is increasing opportunity cost. The opportunity cost of producing X increases as more units of Y are produced. The answer is not increasing opportunity cost. Now, if you go back to the picture, right? In this picture, if you can see, Lamai, it's not 3, 2, 1, and 0. Right? So you can see the amount of good Y you first you reduce 3, then you reduce 6. But if you don't realize, you're reducing good X also by 2 in the second point. The opportunity cost here is actually constant. It's not increasing. So there is an intermediate point in the middle here that can be 1X and 6Y. That 1X, 6Y middle point, they haven't given you. Just because they haven't given you that point, that doesn't mean it's increasing opportunity cost. So the answer there is the red one, not the yellow one. Okay, leaderboard has changed. We have a new leader. Okay. Going to the next. 25. Which economic system is characterized by state ownership of capital and reliance on market allocation of resources? Capitalism, social market economy, socialism, socialist market economy. Which one? Answer number 4, right? The government owns the resources but they have market allocation, means they have price mechanism to allocate their resources. So the green. Okay, leaderboard has changed again. Next one. The core difference between normative economics and positive economics is that positive economics is fact-based while normative is value-based. Normative is based on evidence while positive is subjective opinion. Positive relies on value judgments. Normative is objective. Normative provides analysis while positive offers policy prescriptions. I have no idea why this fellow's picture is on the quiz. Which one is your? Right, nice. That's the first one there. Positive economics is fact-based. Normative is value or personal judgment-based. Okay, so we're done with 26 questions. We have the last 4 questions to go. Okay. 27. Double the points. Which of the following statements best explains the concept of capital in economics? Capital represents human labor and innovation in the production process. Capital includes only tangible assets used for production, such as machines. Capital refers to any financial investment made by people. Capital refers to produced means of production. 1, 2, 3. The answer is the last one, Lama. It's not blue. You can't say capital includes only tangible assets. Now, if you even look at things like human capital, things like social capital, they're not tangible things, right? So, but what you can definitely say is capital refers to produced means of product. Produced means it's something man-made, not gifted. So, capital is something that has been produced that is used in the production process, something that is man-made. That's the last answer, which is your correct one. Okay, leaderboard hasn't changed a lot. The next one, 28. Double the points. Identify the factors that can shift a production possibility boundary for both goods outwards. Think. A reduction in inefficiency of production following a change in management. Adoption of improved technology in both industries. An inflow of foreign investment, improving labor productivity. Remember the point that when I explained, Lama, I told you what is the most suitable answer for one thing. Go with the most suitable one. So I'm going with B and C. I'm not considering A there because remember that same thing was there in our paper as well. I told you, you can argue that it's a shift outward, but for something like A, it was better to say it is a point moving in. Leaderboards have changed. 2 more questions to go. Right? So many people contending. 29. The problem of what shall be produced in a planned economy is determined by independent decisions of the entrepreneurs, partly by market forces, partly by the state, by the directives of the government, by joint directions of consumers and the government. A planned economy. What to produce? It's directly by the government, right? You have someone called the Central Planning Authority. They will be the ones who decide what are you going to produce, right? People, the businesses, the entrepreneurs don't have any say there. Okay, leaderboard hasn't changed. We go to the last. Question 30. Oh, double the points there. The correct combination of current and future living standards resulting from a movement from X to Y on the curve. This actually it has to have balance, but I know why it has a multi-select. So the answer there is I have given The correct answer has to be 2 though, but there's a small mistake that I have marked 4 also, right? Right. So then we'll look at the leaderboard. I hope that small mistake didn't make a change in leaderboard. Okay. So we'll get into the leaderboard itself, right? 30 questions done. That was a pretty long quiz, and there was a lot of things that you all could have learned. One thing that I want to tell you, all of these are past paper questions. I just made small changes here and there. Some of it, I would have put it exactly as it is. Some of it, I would have made a small twist here and there. So for those who did the past paper focus area questions, you should have found this a bit easy. You should have realized that these were things that you have seen somewhere before. Okay. Right. So going to the podium. So we have Sima Marzuk on 3rd. You have Nairuz on 2nd. And you have Samara on number 1. Right. So for the gift itself, right, we have Atiya and Matu on 4th and 5th. The gift itself is a little bit higher since this is the final one. Very proud of how all of you all handled it. The gift is not very, very high. For first place, you have a gift of a 5,000, 3,000 for the second place, and a 2,000 for the first place. 5,000, 3,000, and a 2,000. So good job. Just drop me a text lamai on WhatsApp with your name and your place. I will tell you how you can get the cash prize. So overall, I think that was a good start for unit number 1. We've done a lot of work. So take this week, Lamai, finish off all the unit number work that you have, right? Whatever papers that you have not finished, the past papers, the take-home papers, go through your unit 1 tute. So as much as possible, study unit number 1 and finish it. Next Tuesday, we start unit 2. Unit 2 is a paid class. Let me see the top 10 as well. So unit 2 is, unit 2 is, hold on, full reports. Unit 2 is a paid program. Yes, I'll share the top 20 scorers also. Last prize, the quiz was given, right? There was this thing, whoever who texted me, I would have replied to them on how you can get this thing. I'm sorry if I missed your message, just drop me a text, right? So this is the top 10 in the thing, right? Okay, let me conclude. I'll send the top 20 scorers also in this. Theory exams, I'll let you know when. So with that, Lama, we'll wrap things off. Amazing job for unit number 1. Next week, we're starting unit number 2. For those who have paid the fees, Lamai, please make sure to fill the registration form. There's a form that you need to fill after paying the fees. It's there in the payment details message itself. Make sure you fill it. Then your tutes will come. Give us a few days, Lamai, to get added to the group. Right? Because there are so many people who text. It's not easy, right? Overall, there is around 700 people, Lamai, paying class fees in these 10 days. So it takes time to reply to all of those messages. So admin will respond to it very, very soon. You will, hopefully before next Tuesday, you will be added into a different group and you can get that done. Yes, we'll have a quiz maybe at the end of unit 2 as well, or overall thing to see how it goes. Okay, so see you all. If you have any questions, anything else, please do say and clarify. The others, hopefully I will see you next week. See you. Bye-bye.